Hello, a very good Friday to you. Interesting topic today, so without further ado, let's dive right in.
It is great to be here. And I think interesting might actually be an understatement. Today feels a little bit like we're pulling back the curtain on The Wizard of Oz.
I love those kinds of deep dives. It is February 27, 2026, and, before we get into the heavy economic theory and the tech stuff,
Yeah.
I want to start with a little experiment for everyone listening.
An inventory check.
Exactly. So whether you are commuting or at the gym or maybe just sitting with your morning coffee right now, take a second to mentally look around your life. Just look at your stuff.
Right.
Think about your movie collection, your music library, the software on your laptop, the video games your kids play. Maybe even think about the car in your driveway or the smart devices in your kitchen. Now, here's the question for you. How many of those things do you actually own?
And we really have to be specific about what own means here.
Yeah, clarify that for us.
Well, we don't mean, did you pay for it? We mean, do you possess it in a way that is permanent, transferable, and irrevocable?
Right.
Can you modify it? Can you sell it to a friend? Can you fix it if it breaks without asking for permission from the company that made it?
Because the core tension we are exploring today is this really strange paradox of the 2020s. We are paying more money than ever before, monthly, yearly, for access to things. But we possess less and less. It just feels like we are renting our entire lives.
That isn't just a feeling, it is a harsh economic reality. We are witnessing a fundamental transition in the global economy.
A massive shift.
Exactly. We are moving from a society of owners, people who hold tangible assets, to a society of users with licenses. And this isn't just some abstract philosophical debate about what property is.
No, it hits the wallet hard.
It has massive, tangible implications for your personal freedom and, crucially, your ability to build generational wealth.
So we're calling this deep dive the end of ownership. And we have a serious roadmap today. We aren't just skimming the surface here.
No, we are getting into the weeds.
We are going to unpack the history of how we went from buying physical goods to renting digital licenses.
Right.
We are going to talk about the John Deere moment.
Which is a wild story if you haven't heard it.
Totally wild. Farmers hacking their own tractors just to keep them running. And we have to follow the money. Right?
Yeah, always follow the money.
We need to explain why this is happening. We will look at the economics of the subscription model, why Wall Street is absolutely obsessed with it, and why your bank account is suffering because of it.
And we will get into something that I know drives people crazy, algorithmic pricing.
Oh, that makes my blood boil.
Right. Why the price you see on your screen might be totally different from the price your neighbor sees.
And finally, we will talk about how to fight back. Because if the world is trying to turn you into a permanent renter, you need a strategy to protect your wealth.
Exactly. It is about understanding the rules of the game so you don't get played.
So let's unpack this. Segment 1, the illusion of ownership. I want to start with something simple. Digital goods.
Good place to start.
I think a lot of us have this moment where we look at our iTunes library or our Steam library and we think, wow, look at this massive collection I've built over the years. But have we actually built anything?
Short answer, no.
Ouch.
You haven't built a collection. You have built a list of temporary permits.
That sounds incredibly harsh.
It is harsh, but it is the legal reality. When you click that buy button on a digital storefront,
Like on Amazon or whatever.
yeah, whether it is a movie on Amazon Prime, a game on Steam, or an album on iTunes, you are not buying a good. You are entering into a licensing agreement.
Which nobody actually reads.
Right, which nobody reads. But if you did, you would see terms like revocable, non-transferable, and limited.
Revocable is the scary word there.
Yeah.
Because when I click buy, to me, buy implies forever.
It implies permanence, yes.
But revocable implies, it implies until we change our minds.
Precisely. Essentially, you are paying for the right to access that file on their servers using their software for as long as they decide to let you. And this isn't hypothetical.
What do you mean?
We have seen instances where huge libraries of content just vanish. There was a case with PlayStation fairly recently where users had purchased movies through the PlayStation Store.
Oh, I remember hearing about this.
Yeah, so they paid full price. Then, licensing deals between Sony and the movie studios shifted.
And what happened to the movies people bought?
Poof. Gone. Removed from libraries entirely.
With refunds?
Yeah, no refunds. Because the platform lost the right to host them, so the user lost the right to watch them. The asset evaporated because the server connection was cut.
That is just wild. Compare that to how our parents lived. I remember my dad's record collection growing up. Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd.
Classics.
Those were physical objects. If the local record store went out of business, the vinyl didn't melt in our living room.
Right.
If the record label got sued, the police didn't come to our house to smash the record. He owned it. He could sell it at a garage sale. He could give it to me.
And that is the crucial difference between an asset and a service. An encyclopedia set on a shelf is knowledge you own. You can read it by candlelight during a power outage.
A completely self-contained asset.
Exactly. A subscription to a digital database is just a service. If you stop paying, or if the power goes out, or if the company goes bankrupt, you have absolutely nothing.
So how did we get here? Because I feel like we didn't vote on this. The consumers didn't all get together and say, hey, let's stop owning things.
No, it was a gradual shift, but there was a specific turning point, a patient zero, if you will.
Okay, who was it?
We can trace a lot of this back to 2013 in a company called Adobe.
Oh, the Photoshop guys.
The Photoshop guys.
Yeah.
Now, for the non-designers listening, you have to understand that before 2013, Adobe Creative Suite was the gold standard, but it was a product.
You bought it in a box.
Right? You went to the store or went online and you bought a physical box. It cost a lot of money. Hundreds, sometimes well over $1,000.
I remember that. You would save up for months just to get it for your graphic design classes.
But once you bought it,
It was yours. You had the discs. You had the serial number.
Yeah, you could use that version of Photoshop for 5-10 years if you wanted to. You didn't have to pay Adobe another dime.
And then,
Yeah.
what happened in 2013?
Then came the pivot. In 2013, Adobe announced they were killing the perpetual license entirely. They introduced Creative Cloud.
So no more boxes.
No more boxes, no more owning. You could only use the software if you paid a monthly subscription fee.
I remember the backlash to that. People were furious. There were online petitions everywhere. Professionals were saying, I am not going to rent my hammer. I am a carpenter. I need to own my hammer.
It was a massive gamble for them. But here is why it matters. It worked.
They pulled it off.
It worked spectacularly. Despite the anger, people didn't leave. They really couldn't. Adobe was the industry standard, and financially, Adobe's stock price went to the moon.
Because suddenly, they didn't have to convince you to buy the new version every 2 years. They didn't have to market new features to get you to upgrade. They just billed your credit card every 30 days, forever.
Exactly. It proved the model. It showed the rest of the tech industry that you could force even the most demanding professional users into a rental model, and they would ultimately accept it.
Because they had no alternative.
Right. It shifted the entire paradigm from selling units to monetizing users.
Once Silicon Valley saw that chart, once they saw that money printing machine, everyone jumped on board. Now it is Microsoft Office. It is your fitness app. It is even your heated car seats, which we will definitely get to.
It normalized the idea that you are merely a tenant in your own digital life.
Okay, so that is software. And I think on some level, we have resigned ourselves to that reality. We can say, okay, fine, I don't own the code.
Yeah, people accept the digital rent.
But here's where it gets really interesting. And honestly, this is the part that makes me genuinely angry. This logic has leaked out of the computer and into the physical world.
This is the natural evolution of the tech. As computers get smaller and cheaper, we started putting chips in absolutely everything.
Toasters, fridges.
Cars, tractors. And once you put a computer in a machine, you introduce software. And once you introduce software, you introduce the license.
Which brings us to the John Deere metaphor. And we aren't talking about a $10 monthly Spotify fee here. We are talking about heavy industrial machinery.
Right. Imagine you're a farmer in the Midwest. You run a massive agricultural operation. You have just purchased a top-of-the-line John Deere combine harvester.
A beautiful piece of machinery.
This machine costs upwards of $500,000, $500,000.
For that kind of money, I would expect to own every nut, bolt, and line of code on that thing.
You would think so, but here is the scenario that actually plays out. You are in the middle of harvest. Timing is everything. A massive storm is coming in. Suddenly, the tractor just stops.
Oh, man.
A sensor has tripped. Maybe a $20 sensor that monitors exhaust flow has failed.
Okay, so you are a farmer. You are handy. You fix things for a living. You grab your toolbox, you swap out the sensor, back to work. Right.
Wrong. Mechanically, you have replaced the part. The machine is physically capable of working perfectly, but the tractor's brain, the engine control unit, or ECU, hasn't been authorized to recognize that new part.
So it rejects it.
The software throws an error code and puts the tractor into what is called limp mode.
Limp mode.
It restricts the engine to an absolute crawl. You can move it out of the way, but you cannot work with it. The tractor is effectively bricked.
So you have a $500,000 paperweight sitting in the mud because of a software lock.
Correct. And here's the kicker. You cannot clear that code yourself. You cannot plug in a laptop and tell the ECU, hey, I fixed the exhaust sensor. The software is locked behind a digital rights management wall. DRM.
Who holds the key?
The only person who can unlock it is an authorized John Deere technician.
So you have to call the dealer. You have no choice.
You have to call the dealer. And maybe they are 3 hours away. Maybe they are booked up for 2 days. Meanwhile, your crop is literally rotting in the field because of the storm.
That is just devastating.
And when the technician finally arrives, he plugs in a proprietary laptop, clicks a button on the screen that says authorize, charges you $600 for the service call, and leaves.
That is infuriating. It feels like extortion.
It raises the deep philosophical question of this whole deep dive. If you cannot repair it, do you truly own it? Or are you just a very expensive user of John Deere's intellectual property?
The manufacturer is basically saying, look, you own the steel and the rubber, but we own the soul of the machine.
Exactly. And because the machine doesn't work without the soul, they control the machine entirely. It is a brilliant, if sinister, way of maintaining a monopoly on repair and service.
It cuts out the local independent mechanic completely.
It forces all that ongoing revenue back to the dealership network.
But farmers aren't exactly the type to just roll over and take this right. They are incredibly resourceful. I have heard stories about black market tractor software.
Oh, absolutely. This is the cyberpunk reality of modern farming. For years, farmers have been going onto obscure internet forums, often buying cracked firmware from hackers in Ukraine or Eastern Europe.
Wow.
They are buying illegal software just to hack the tractor they legally bought, simply so they can fix it themselves and save their crops.
That is incredible. Breaking the law just to fix your own property.
It highlights how structurally broken the system is. But there is some good news here. This extreme situation actually sparked the right to repair movement.
I've seen those headlines floating around. Are we winning that fight at all?
We are making some progress. It is a slow grind. In 2022, there was a memorandum of understanding signed with the American Farm Bureau.
Okay, that's something.
And more recently, in March 2024, the European Union approved a pretty significant directive on the right to repair.
So, problem solved. We can fix our stuff again.
Not quite. These are partial victories. They act as a Band-Aid. They force manufacturers to provide manuals and some diagnostic tools, but they don't necessarily dismantle the underlying architecture of those software locks.
They still hold the keys.
The manufacturers are fighting tooth and nail to keep that control, because that control equals massive revenue.
And that is the perfect transition. We keep mentioning revenue. We keep mentioning stock prices. We really need to understand why the entire economy is shifting this way. Why does Wall Street hate selling things and love renting things?
It is all about the risk profile. Let's look at this from the corporate view first.
Okay, pretend I am a CEO of a major tech company. Why do I want a subscription model so badly?
Because you crave predictability above all else. If you sell iPhones or tractors or boxes of graphic design software, you have to wake up every January 1st and start from absolute zero.
You have to make the sale all over again.
You have to convince millions of people to buy your new product. If the economy is bad, people might skip the upgrade cycle. Your revenue is spiky, it is volatile.
Investors hate volatility.
They absolutely despise it. But a subscription, that is recurring revenue. Capital R, capital R. It is smooth, it is highly predictable.
The Holy Grail?
If you have 10 million subscribers paying $10 a month, you know exactly how much money is coming in next month. You can plan around it. You can borrow against it safely.
It turns a regular business into a utility, like the electric company or the water company.
Exactly. And Wall Street rewards that stability with a much higher valuation. There is fascinating data from a company called Zuora, which manages subscription billing for huge corporations.
What would they find?
They track this from 2012 to 2023. Companies that operate on a subscription model grew significantly faster than the S&P 500 average.
So if you are an investor, you love this model.
Yeah.
But for us, for the average consumer, this is what I call death by 1,000 cuts.
It is a massive wealth drain. It is insidious because each individual cut is so small you barely notice it.
Right. It is just the price of a coffee. That is always the marketing line.
It is only $12 for Spotify. It is only $15 for Netflix. It is only $8 for the New York Times. It is only $5 for iCloud storage.
Don't forget the doorbell camera.
Right. It is only $10 for your doorbell camera video storage.
Let's do the math on that, though. Because I think people really ignore the aggregate cost.
Let's say you have a standard, modern digital lifestyle. You have your streaming services, some cloud storage, a couple of productivity apps, maybe a meal kit delivery service. You are easily spending $100 to $150 a month on subscriptions alone.
Which, to be fair, doesn't sound crazy compared to rent or a car payment.
But run that out over 10 years. $150 a month is $1,800 a year. Over a decade, that is $18,000.
18 grand. Just gone.
And here is the deep tragedy of that math. At the end of the 10 years, after paying $18,000, what do you actually have to show for it? Zero. You have absolutely zero equity. You cannot sell your Netflix watch history to a friend. You cannot cash in your Spotify playlists.
That is depressing.
If you had spent that $18,000 on a used car, you would at least have a car you could sell for a few $1,000s. If you put it into a mortgage, you would have equity in a property. Subscriptions are pure consumption. They evaporate the exact moment the month ends.
The source material we are looking at today uses a really powerful analogy here. It compares this whole system to feudalism. And at first glance, I thought that was a bit dramatic, but the more you explain it, the more it makes sense.
It is the techno-feudalism theory. And honestly, it is startlingly accurate. Think about the Middle Ages for a second. You had lords who owned all the land, and you had serfs who worked the land.
A very clear hierarchy.
The serfs didn't own anything. They paid a constant tribute to the lord just for the privilege of existing on the land and surviving.
And today, the land is the platform.
Apple is the lord. Google is the lord. Amazon is the lord. They own the foundational infrastructure, the server farms, the app stores, the digital marketplaces.
And we are the serfs.
We are the serfs. We pay a monthly tribute in the form of subscriptions, transaction fees, and our personal data just to have access to the modern digital world.
We are essentially tenants in a world built by billionaires.
And if you stop paying the tribute, you are evicted. You are cast out of digital society. Your photos disappear, your music stops playing, your business software locks up.
That is terrifyingly accurate. It really frames the power dynamic in a new light. It is not just buying a service, it is a deep dependency.
And just like in historical feudalism, the power is completely asymmetrical. The lord knows everything about the serf, how much corn they grew, how many children they have, but the serf knows very little about the lord.
Which is a perfect segue to how they actually determine what that tribute or price actually is. Because the lord isn't charging everyone the exact same amount anymore. But before we get into the dark magic of algorithms and how they are basically reading your mind and your battery life, we want to take a quick moment to speak directly to you.
We are diving deep today, and if you like what you're hearing today, we invite you to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment on what topics you'd like us to tackle in future deep dives.
In the description of this deep dive, you will find the PayPal link if you want to support this project. Your contribution helps a lot so we can keep making content like this. We don't ask for more than the cost of a coffee. Thanks for your support.
Now, let's get back to the nightmare. We talked about the feudal lords. Now let's talk about their enforcers, the algorithms.
Yes. This segment is all about dynamic pricing. And honestly, this is the part of the research that makes me feel like I am living in a computer simulation. The expert source material brings up this economic concept called third-degree price discrimination. Can you translate that into plain English for us?
Sure. It sounds complicated, like something from a graduate economics seminar, but it is actually very simple. In a perfect world, perfect for the seller, that is, they would charge every single customer the absolute maximum that specific person is willing to pay.
So if I am rich and desperate for a product, charge me $100. If I am broke and patient, charge me $50.
Exactly. But historically, executing that was impossible. If you run a local coffee shop, you have to put a physical price on the menu board.
Right.
You can't look at a guy's expensive shoes and say, for you, the latte is $8, and then look at the next guy and say, for you, it is $3. People would riot in the store.
Plus, you don't really know who is rich and who is desperate just by looking at them across a counter.
Right. There was an information asymmetry that heavily favored the buyer. You, the buyer, knew your budget and your desperation level. The seller didn't. But today, in the digital world, that asymmetry has completely flipped.
Because of our data.
Because they know absolutely everything. When you visit a travel site or an online retailer, they aren't just passively showing you a web page. They're actively interrogating your device.
What exactly are they looking for during that interrogation?
Location is the obvious one. If you are booking a hotel from a wealthy zip code, prices might mysteriously tick up, but it gets much, much more granular than that. They know your device type.
Like iPhone versus Android.
Yes, there is actual data showing that Mac users are often shown higher prices than Windows users for the same services, or they are presented with the premium options first because the algorithm assumes higher disposable income.
That is wild. But you mentioned something earlier that sounded like straight up science fiction. You said battery level.
Yes. This is a famous example from the ride-sharing industry. Apps can actually see your phone's battery percentage through the operating system.
Okay.
The data suggests that if your phone battery is at 5%, you are significantly more likely to accept a higher price, a surge price, because you are desperate.
Because my phone is about to die and I need a ride home now.
Exactly. You need to get that car before your screen goes black. The algorithm sees your battery is dying and thinks, got him, squeeze him for an extra 20%.
It calculates your actual pain tolerance in real time.
Essentially, yes.
So when I am looking at a flight to New York and I hit refresh a couple of times and the price suddenly goes up $50, that is not just bad luck.
It is very often the system reacting directly to your behavior. If you search for the exact same flight 3 times in a single hour, the algorithm flags you as highly interested.
It knows I need to be in New York.
It might bump the price up just to see if you will panic and buy it before it goes up again. It is testing your limits.
So the price isn't the price.
No, the price is your price. It is a highly calculated number based on an algorithmic assessment of your personal willingness to pay. It is information asymmetry weaponized against the consumer.
They hold all the cards.
They have the database of millions of users and trillions of data points. You have a single glowing screen that only shows you what they want you to see.
It is rigged. It feels completely rigged against it.
It is optimized extraction. It is no longer about finding a fair market value for a good or service. It is about maximizing the profit margin extracted from each individual user. And when you apply this logic to millions of people over decades, it results in a massive concentration of wealth at the top.
So let's zoom out for a minute.
Sure.
We have the death of physical ownership. We don't own our software or our tractors. We have the rise of the subscription model. We are bleeding money every single month. And we have algorithmic rigged pricing. What does this do to society as a whole?
This brings us to the broader societal shift. And to understand where we are going, we actually have to look backward. There is a fascinating reference in our source material to a classic economist named Thorstein Veblen.
Veblen. He wrote The Theory of the Leisure Class, right?
Yeah.
I vaguely remember that from college.
Correct. Way back in 1899. He is the one who coined the term conspicuous consumption.
Which basically means showing off your wealth to other people.
Right. But think about how they showed off wealth in 1899 during the Gilded Age. If you were a tycoon, you bought a massive physical estate. You filled it with physical art, heavy mahogany furniture, furs, private carriages.
You showed off what you legally owned.
Property was status. Visible, tangible property.
But now, I look at how people flex on social media. It is very different.
Veblen's logic has been completely inverted. Today, owning physical stuff like walls of DVDs or CDs or physical books is almost seen as clutter by a lot of people. It is old-fashioned. Modern status is all about access.
Access over ownership. I have the platinum subscription, I have the verified checkmark, I have the digital key to the VIP lounge.
Exactly. We are displaying our ability to pay rent to these platforms. We are essentially bragging about being better tenants. I subscribe to everything. But this shift from owning assets to paying for access has a devastating silent impact on generational wealth.
This is the part that genuinely worries me for my kids and their future.
It absolutely should. Think about inheritance. For hundreds of years, the middle class built wealth by accumulating assets slowly and passing them down. My grandfather passed down his house.
Which has real value.
Maybe a small family business. A collection of high-quality tools. A library of rare books.
Those are tangible things. You can sell the house.
Yeah.
You can use the tools to make a living.
Now, look at a modern digital life. You spend 50 years paying for Netflix, Spotify, iCloud, Xbox Game Pass, software licenses. You spend hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. Then you die.
Right.
What do your children get from all that spending?
A list of passwords.
Which, again, are often strictly illegal to transfer under the terms of service. You cannot inherit a massive Steam gaming library. When you die, your lifetime access dies with you. The account is closed, the data is deleted off the server.
So the wealth accumulation just stops. The money was spent, the economy grew, but no lasting asset was created for the family.
Precisely. It widens the wealth gap enormously.
Yeah.
You have a very small class of people, The investors, the shareholders of the tech giants who actually own the underlying assets, the server farms, the intellectual property, the digital real estate, they accumulate extreme wealth.
And the rest of us.
Then you have the rest of the population who are trapped in a cycle of perpetual renting. They are running on a digital hamster wheel, paying just to stay in the exact same place.
And it is really worth noting, just so we aren't accused of sitting here being conspiracy theorists wearing tinfoil hats,
Yeah.
that major global institutions are fully aware of this shift. The source material explicitly mentions reports from the World Economic Forum, the WEF, and the IMF.
Yes, and we should be very clear and impartial here. We are just reporting what is written in the public documents. These institutions have clearly identified this macroeconomic trend.
Right.
The WEF has famously discussed the concept of access over ownership as a potential future model for global efficiency.
That leads to that famous headline people always quote, "You will own nothing and be happy."
That was the prediction they outlined. And whether you view that as a utopian future where you never have to worry about maintenance or storage, or a dystopian future where you have zero control over your own life, really depends on your personal politics.
We aren't taking sides on whether the WEF is good or bad.
Exactly. We remain neutral on that. But the underlying economic trend itself is undeniably moving in that direction. The data is clear.
So that is the diagnosis, and honestly, it is a bit grim. The system is fundamentally designed to make us permanent renters. It is designed to drain our wallets via thousands of tiny monthly cuts.
It is a sobering reality.
But we are not here to just complain and ruin your Friday. We want to offer actual solutions.
Precisely. You cannot just magically opt out of modern society. You can't go live in a cave in the woods. You need a computer. You need software to do your job. You need transportation. But you desperately need a counter strategy.
So how do we fight back? How do we build wealth in a world that structurally wants to keep us poor?
The strategy is simple to say, but it takes immense discipline to do. You must aggressively shift your personal identity from consumer to owner.
Okay, let's break that down into practical terms. What does that look like on a random Tuesday morning?
It means you need to stop looking at your monthly budget just in terms of what can I afford to buy this month? And start thinking, what can I afford to own this month? If the entire economy is shifting to a model where massive companies collect rent, you need to figure out how to be the one collecting the rent.
So you mean buy the stock?
Exactly. If you are angry that Adobe is charging you $50 a month forever just to edit photos, buy Adobe stock.
Become a part owner.
If you are annoyed that Apple extracts 30% from every single app purchase, buy Apple stock. You need to align your financial future with the flow of the money, not just stand in front of the fire hose and get run over.
Be the landlord, not just the tenant.
In the financial sense, yes. And the source material gives a very specific, powerful mathematical example regarding children and compound interest. This is basically the get-out-of-jail card for the next generation.
The child account example. I absolutely love this part. Walk us through the math on this.
It is striking how simple it is. The example suggests that if you were to invest just 100 currency units, let's say dollars per month, starting from the very day a child is born.
Okay, $100 a month. That is skipping a couple of dinners out, or maybe canceling 4 or 5 of those streaming subscriptions we just talked about.
Exactly. It is highly reachable for many middle-class families if they make it a priority. If you put that $100 into a diversified index fund, say something that tracks the S&P 500, and you let it sit there.
You don't trade it. You don't touch it.
You don't touch it. You let compound interest work its mathematical magic over time.
And we assume a standard average historical return, maybe 7 or 8%.
Right. By the time that child turns 18, that account could easily be worth upwards of $50,000.
That is life-changing money for an 18-year-old kid.
It entirely changes the trajectory of their adult life. That is a down payment on a first house. That is a seed fund for a business startup. That allows them to avoid crippling student loan debt.
And most importantly, that is ownership. That is real equity.
That is the difference between starting life with a financial safety net and starting life with nothing but a stack of monthly bills. If you do not own productive assets, you are merely part of someone else's revenue stream.
Wow.
You are the yield for someone else's investment portfolio. You have to flip the script.
I think that is the absolute key takeaway for everyone listening. You have to audit your life.
Absolutely. Here is an actionable thought for the weekend. Print out your bank statement. Get a physical highlighter. Go line by line and highlight every single recurring charge, every subscription, every membership, every cloud storage fee.
And look at that highlighted page and ask yourself, do I actually need this?
Ask yourself, what part of my daily life depends on something that a corporation can turn off tomorrow with the flip of a switch? And how much of this money is building a permanent foundation for my family, and how much is just digital rent?
It is eye-opening when you actually do it.
If you can free up $50 or $100 a month from rent and move it into ownership via long-term investments, you are actively fighting back against the system.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. From the Adobe pivot in 2013 that essentially killed software ownership, to the desperate farmers hacking their own $500,000 tractors with Ukrainian firmware.
We looked at the powerful Wall Street incentives that push for endless subscriptions, that insatiable craving for predictable recurring revenue, and the invasive algorithms that personalize prices based on whether your phone battery is dying.
And finally, we discussed the deep societal shift, where digital access is replacing physical assets as the ultimate status symbol, and why that is a hidden trap for your financial future if you don't take decisive action.
It really all comes down to autonomy. True freedom isn't just about canceling a Netflix account to save 15 bucks.
Right.
It is about clearly understanding the asymmetry of the system we live in. It is about realizing that in a world designed for renters, the only real safety is in becoming an owner.
That is an incredibly powerful place to land. And before we go, I have one final, slightly provocative thought for you to mull over this weekend. We spent all this time talking about owning physical things versus renting digital things. But think about your personal data, your digital identity.
The most valuable asset of all.
If the tech platforms own your data, and your data directly drives the algorithms that set the prices you pay and the information you see, who really owns your decisions?
That is the genuinely scary question. If the algorithm knows what you want before you even realize you want it, and they set the price based on your exact level of desperation, are you really the one making a free choice?
Or are you just walking down a predetermined path they paid for you?
Something to keep you up at night.
Something to think about while you're renting your weekend entertainment. And with that, we reach the end of today's deep dive. We hope you liked it, learned something new, and will join us for the next one.
Thank you very much, and we will meet again very soon.
Remember that the PayPal link is in the description of this video if you want to help us out. Thanks once again. Greetings.